David, before we talk about your first year as a Chief Constable, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I'm David Sandall and I've got the privilege of being the current Chief Constable of Leicestershire Police, and it's a place I've served for nearly 27 years. I've been a police officer in Leicester, working across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. I was actually born in Leicester. I grew up in Leicester, went to school in Leicester, went off to university, went travelling and then came back and joined the police, and that's been my recent life. So I've got a real vested interest in making sure that our communities are safe, that we do a really, really good job, because my family are also brought up across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, and yeah, it means something to me and hopefully my family, my friends and the people that work for us.
What motivated you to stay with Leicestershire Force?
So I did go to university and got a law degree, but it was something I always wanted to do, was join the police. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to keep people safe, and I wanted to catch those people who are committing crime. I have got a history of policing. My dad served about 36 years with Leicestershire Police, and my granddad did 30 years as well in Leicester City Police. My dad was the last serving Leicester City Constable before when he retired, because we've amalgamated over different times. The force has changed names. So yes, something really, really proud of, that, you know, I've got that history in the force, and it was something I saw that they were out there making a difference. Yes, they were working Christmas, they were working all hours, they were on call, but actually you saw that they really cared about what they do. And they worked in such a vibrant city. They worked in an area that's sort of grown over many, many years. And you know, when you see that at home and you see somebody coming home excited, happy, the engagement, the contacts they got with the community, I thought, yeah, policing would be for me, and that's certainly been the right choice. It's been a brilliant place to work. The communities, the people that you meet, the people on the street that want to make a difference, and people want to feel safe across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. And it's important that I say all three, because they're all slightly different communities, but they're all really, really important to us in Leicestershire Police.
How would you describe a love of Leicester?
Well, I think it's a vibrant place. You've got a difference between the city and the county. You know, I'm a sporty person, so I'm really proud of our sports teams as well. You know, across lots of different sports, but obviously the mainstream around the rugby, the football, the cricket, the riders, the basketball, have all done us really, really proud. And when you see those teams bringing together people from across the county to support, you know, all joining up, then that's something to be really, really proud of. Really proud of Leicestershire Police in terms of our involvement. They always say that the public are the police and the police are the public, and that's what you see with Leicestershire Police. We know there's a lot of us that, you know, care about our local area, and we work really closely with those people that also volunteer or elected officials or work in the area to try and make it safe for everybody.
It's been a year in the job. How has it been for you?
Do you know what? It's been an absolute privilege to be the Chief Constable, to lead the force that you joined all those years ago. It is a privilege. It's a privilege to lead the people that I lead, and I'd just say that the officers, the staff, the police CSOs that go out there and make a difference every day. You know, sometimes I'm humbled about some of the stuff that they do. They're running towards danger consistently. They're saving lives. They're diverting people from the criminal justice system. There's too much work, there's lots of demand coming in. You know, we've had more 999 calls in the last year, over 4,000 more, you know, non-emergency calls, 38,000 more calls for service. But that's because people locally have got a real confidence in their local police. They feel part of it. They want us to be there when people are in crisis, because they're going to make a difference. And it's the people in the organisation. And I think that that's what makes me most proud to be the Chief Constable, is I've got an opportunity to represent them and the great work that they do across lots of different neighbourhoods. I think the biggest challenge is definitely the money, the finances, is because it's, whatever you say in terms of the different services and the challenges we've got, Leicestershire Police is really underfunded. When you look at our rates per population, if we had the average in the country, we'd have 150 more police officers. If we had the highest numbers, we're talking about 800 more police officers. So for an area that has many of the metropolitan challenges of but we're still a county force, the numbers, you know, they don't add up. So we've made over £28 million worth of cuts in the last 3 years, but we've carried on delivering a service. Crime is down, confidence is up, and we're detecting more crime as well. So that's really, really positive, because the people out there are trying to make a difference. But the biggest challenge I've had is the money, and that's going to continue in the next year. I already know that we're going to have to make, we're going to be reducing the workforce again in the future, just because of the financial situation that Leicestershire Police finds itself in.
How have you supported your staff and officer this year?
So wellbeing is really, really important. Policing is really, really challenging. I think those people who get to know the force and come to see us are really surprised around the complexity, the breadth of what young officers have to deal with, and so therefore we have a really good wellbeing offer. We do look after our people, with occupational health for those people who need it. We do sort of TRIM, which is something where it's trauma-informed sort of practice that's turned from the military, because unfortunately we see many sites that many people wouldn't want to see in their lives, to try and make sure that we can give people the coping mechanisms to do it. Obviously, we also want to be catching lots of criminals, so fitness is really important, but that's also really good for people's mental health. So we have gym memberships in as part of our own sort of force areas, and we're making sure that we can invest in those areas so we can keep people fit and healthy, so they can provide a really good service and catch those people committing crime.
What you have made a change since you came as Chief Pope?
What have I made a change? I don't think I needed to make significant changes. We were a good force, and we've got good people working for the organisation. So sometimes when you're Chief Constable, it's about making sure that we can keep that trajectory, and then make sure that we carry on working really hard to meet the public need, to problem solve local issues. And what we're seeing is crime's reducing, people are more confident in us, and we're detecting more crime. So I definitely can't be more prouder of the people that we work with. However, those people we work with aren't just internally. We do loads with local communities. We do lots with the partnerships, in particular the Violence Reduction Network, which is trying to make it feel safer, make it safer for people. We've done lots of campaigns to make people aware of some of the activities, so bystanders or supporting victims, and that sort of work makes me really, really proud. But it's about reducing crime, increasing confidence is really important to us.
How can trust between community and the police be improved?
I think locally, when I go out on patrol regularly with my neighbour officers, that trust is really there. They really value the fact that we've invested locally with local officers that are still on foot patrol, that are still on bike patrols. They're visible, they're being seen, and those beat officers make a big difference. And we've also got response officers who respond to 999, and then we have our specialists, whether that's detectives, firearms, search teams. But what I think the public see is when something serious happens, we take it really seriously. We're really good at responding to those serious incidents. And I think people build on that trust and confidence. Of course, the media, what gets reported, often focus on some of the negative things around the force. And yes, we have sacked people because they didn't meet the high standards that we expect in Leicestershire Police. But don't take that anything away from the hard work. And I get the pleasure of seeing the letters come in from the public that highlight, somebody going above and beyond, the way they made people feel in terms of their crime or their incident. That makes such a positive difference. And I think, so the trust and confidence locally is there from the local contact. We can't have control over some of the broader things that happens in policing nationally and locally, but that local contact makes such a difference. And we've got communities that still want to engage with us. People are still contacting us because they want us to solve issues or they're concerned about activities. That's got to be a positive thing for Leicestershire Police, and it's certainly something I'm really proud of.
What was your most memorable time as a chief?
Oh, what's my most memorable time? I think probably I was very privileged to give out the awards that we've had from the year, where members of the public who have done brave acts, who have then come forward in support of the police or in support of society or to protect people. To recognise those people, I think, was a real privilege. But also then, the Crown Court commendations that people get for the quality of the investigation, the quality of the police work, the bravery of the officers and staff, going into water to save people, tackling people with knives, those type of things that you never want to see, you never want to come across, because we prefer to prevent it. But when you see those sort of acts to keep us all safe across Leicestershire and Rutland, I think it's probably one of my proudest moments. But there's probably so many, all those different points. And now thinking about it, but after we've spoken, I'll probably think, I should have said this one or that one, because there's been so many high points in the year.
How can community member reach or approach your office?
I just think it's that it's the engagement. Do it through your local neighbourhood officer. The local neighbourhood officers are, and your PCSOs are definitely the way to have a reach into policing, because they're your local connectivity. They're the people you're going to see. They're the people you're going to be working with to make your area safe. And so I know that our neighbourhood officers and our PCSOs are out there. We've got front inquiry offices, we've got really regular hours, around those. We've made some changes, but again, it appears to have gone down really well with the public in terms of, what they are, in terms of the feedback that we've had, in terms of the regular communication and the impact around that. So, yeah, that's, that's the way to do it. It's through our neighbourhood team. To have that local connectivity with the team that's trying to make a difference where you live.
How do you respond to the people who feel the police are a waste of time?
I'd say, if there wasn't the police, then look who's going to keep them safe. Because even the people that may have a different view of policing, whether they've had a contact that was negative in the past, when they're really in crisis point, who do they call? And they do call the police, and they regularly call the police. We have about 1,700 to 1,800 calls for service a day in the last few weeks. That's every day. 1,700 plus people are calling the police because they need us, because they want us, and they need our support. So I think that's testament to itself that actually we are there, and you have to look at our success at locking up people in terms of keeping people safe in the communities, investigating crime. We want to prevent the crime first. We invest really heavily in preventing it, but when it does occur, then we want to make sure we bring people to justice and we keep people safe. And I think my thing to them is, you should be really proud of Leicestershire Police, and I think what you should do is, if you see your local police officer, you'll see your local PCSO, actually go and engage with them. Go and make sure you understand what they're doing, because I think you'll be really, starstruck in relation to the breadth of what they deal with. And then many of them are quite young as well, because one of my other strategic challenges is just around the length of service in terms of the turnover that we've had. But we've got some really highly motivated, skilled people in the organisation who want to make a difference. So if you see them, make sure you're supporting them, because they're keeping you safe.
How do you support your officer, especially when times are tough?
Well, I think it's important to be visible as the Chief Constable, making sure that we recognise that people are going to go through difficult times. You look across what they have to deal with. We have to have a high level of resilience, the resilience to the demands that we face. Obviously, we work shift work. We work 365 days a year. People do miss people's birthdays, Christmas, faith celebrations, Diwali, because they've got to work and they've got to be out there making a difference. So what I see is that we support each other as a team. If you join us, we're really part of a team. We call it Team Leicestershire. That means something to us, because when it gets difficult, we can all pull on together to support each other. But that's not just internally, that's with our communities, it's with elected officials. I think we're very fortunate that we do have a really broad range of support, because of what we're trying to do and what we endeavour to do all the time. And of course, there are challenges. It has been relentless. My frontline officers, in terms of the amount of demand that they're under. I think if people realised what they get for what we have, in terms of the numbers of people we have, the amount of work and demands that are being placed on us, I think they'd be really amazed about how well we do.
How would you describe Leicestershire Force?
How would I describe it? I would describe it as a committed, hard-working force that wants to make a difference. We want to be a leading force in the country. We're an emergency service. We're a service that prevents crime. We're a service that maintains order and also detects crime. And I would describe it as a service that's fundamental to the safety of people across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland.
Finally, what's your goal for the next year?
My goal for the next year is to try and manage us through the financial situation whilst trying to mitigate any impact on the public. And what that means is, can we carry on giving the really good service that we aspire to with the people that we've got? But we're going to have to embrace technology and do it in a different way, which we're doing. We're very innovative and forward-thinking as a force. So my goal for the next year is to navigate us through some of these challenges whilst still detecting more crime, reducing crime, and trying to increase that trust and confidence that we know that's increasing as it is now.
David, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.